Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 3, Episode 11, Keep Calm and Flutter On. This is the second Discord episode in which he is brought to Boneyville by Celestia in order to be reformed, and Fluttershy tries to actually reach out to him to be a friend, while everyone else tries to mind control him back into subservience. In the end, he realizes that he does actually want to have a friend, and he is reformed. Talk about that in a minute. The end. Let's just start with saying that I do like this episode, but especially on repeat viewing, it does fall apart a little bit, and I think the easiest way to explain why is that it really should have been a two-parter. There's too much to unpack here in one episode, and the episode does a really good job with its pacing and its tempo right up until the end when it's just done. It's like, whoa, wait. Nevertheless, I think they do a surprisingly good job with what they've got here, and I do think this is probably going to get the orange rating. Yeah, no kidding, I say 2K. This is also one of the reasons why Discord's arc will continue across, I think, 3 more episodes after this. Let me actually pull up Season 4 really quick here. I mean, Discord episodes will continue happening for a while. But yeah, the problem is it's hard to talk about this episode without also talking about Twilight's Kingdom Part 2. Which is, well, Twilight's Kingdom in general. Which is really Part 2 of this episode. And that's part of the problem. See, here's the thing. Discord actually does show up after this. Not counting that episode. He shows up in... I'm trying to find the episode. There it is. Season 4, Episode 12. 3 is a Crowd. And he shows up in that episode, and... that's a decent episode. You know, there's some decent stuff there. But no, Discord's actual character arc continues in Twilight's Kingdom. And that's... I mean, I guess that's kind of the nature of a long-form show storytelling. I've talked about that before. And having a character arc across multiple episodes makes sense. And as weird as this may sound, I don't have a better option off the top of my head. Other than just turning this into a two-parter. I feel like having him... kind of agree to be reformed kind of makes sense, and the problem is they just needed to follow through with this a little bit more, and it took forever for them to do so whatever, we'll get to that later. Anyways, allow me to go ahead and say an extremely unpopular opinion here. I actually like the idea of reformed Discord a lot. There's a comic which I've referenced several times. In fact, I probably still have the image saved here. Let's see if that's true. Hey, there it is. It's actually one of the comics between Discord and Luna, as you can see. And, well, the whole comic's pretty good, and he ends up actually bonding with Luna a bit over the course of the comic. My favorite part is right there. You don't understand, Princess. I'm not evil. I'm chaotic. Not the same thing. I oppose order, not good. And her response is, order is good. It provides protection, unity, and harmony. That's why the elements were able to bind you. And he says, order can be good when wielded correctly. And that right there, yeah, that's Discord in a nutshell. Or at least, in my opinion, Discord in a nutshell. And, of course, helps to explain a lot of what it is. But anyways, let's get into the episode itself. This intro works really well as a late show teaser. So, to explain what I mean by that, there are 2 types of teasers when it comes to, or cold opens if you prefer, when it comes to television. Type 1 is when the cold open happens and it helps establish what's going on and it gets your interest in it. And type 2 is the cold open where the intro happens, but it makes absolutely no sense unless you're already invested in the show. Now, the former type it obviously needs to exist for various reasons, or at least used to. I think in the modern era, the old type of cold open doesn't actually serve a purpose anymore. But back when, you know, when you were just flipping through channels was a thing, trying to make sure that people stayed and continued to watch the show was actually part of the main point of the cold open. But the idea here of the invested cold open. I've talked about this several times in Star Trek, and I praise it whenever I see a good one, which is why I'm pausing to talk about this here. The whole point of an invested cold open is it perfectly understands its audience and who's watching it and uses their knowledge and expectation to prompt a question. Wait a minute, what? Right? Like, hang on, how is that, or why is that here, or what is he doing there, or why are they going on, and so forth and so on, right? The idea being that this is a perfect example of that. What are we all here for? Celestia's called us together. Why? Because of Discord. Now, if you've never seen this show, that means nothing. There's no relevance there. It's just you get the vague idea of this is bad. If you're invested in the show, you remember him as being the second of 3 major villains we've encountered so far. And so it kind of helps to be fleshed out and make you go, huh. They even have the stone runner. Hello, Starscream. So Celestia accurately predicts Fluttershy will have a yawn attack and be the one to reform Discord. And on the off chance you're not sure why, the scene then immediately cuts to her successfully managing to make peace with AJ and Mr. Beaverton. Or Beaverteeth? Beaverton? Either way, it helps to establish why Fluttershy is the peacemaker and her particular talents in the group, which honestly hasn't really been done all that well in this show to date, so it was a nice thing showcasing that. Also, I agree with Larian. Celestia doing this is incredibly smart. Remember, we do know that chaos magic is its own thing, and the kind of thing that the other 4 types of magic that we know about don't really have much influence over or access to. And this is the kind of thing that will actually directly come up when it comes to Tyrek in the end of Season 4, as I mentioned earlier. So, I mean, I hate to quote KOTOR, but what greater power is there than to turn your enemy into your ally, right? There is a tremendous intellect in Celestia's move here. Because at worst, she loses nothing. They just put him back to stone, and he goes back to being stone. At least that's the thinking. Obviously, there's like 1,000 ways this can go wrong. But, the idea being, someone like Discord really would be an amazingly useful ally. But again, this is a huge risk. And as Larian points out, freezing Discord is the kind of thing that may or may not actually work. Sure, Starscream, but I'm a little distracted, so forgive me if I'm a little distracted. So yeah, this is trying to permanently plug a hole that has been temporarily band-aided. So for like 3 or 4 different reasons, this actually is a relatively smart move. I say relatively because, again, there's a lot of ways this can go wrong. Thankfully, Discord isn't actually evil. If he was, this would be a bad thing. Because I bet every single person in chat could come up with a separate way, a separate individual and distinct way in which Discord could have gotten away with this and gotten off and been his thing, right? If he was actually an evil, malevolent, malicious kind of person. Instead, this whole thing amuses him enough that he's willing to play along with it. So, it kind of ends up working. But this was a very risky move, and I don't want to sound like I'm dismissing that. That's true. She did send the Apple family here, too, to help settle and restore this area, because push back the Everfree Forest. Quick aside, I do like the bit. Damn the True Whisperer. Maybe he's like Q? I mean, the parallels to Q are real and constant. There's a reason why so many people think Discord literally is Q, and it's just, they're hopping between dimensions. Because it wouldn't be that hard to equate that. In fact, it would be incredibly easy. And we're done. That's all you need to do. No, that has nothing to do with that, Starscream. First of all, you're asking me to violate my own rule, which I will not do. But I will go ahead and explain the reason I'm not covering the sequel trilogy has nothing to do with their quality whatsoever. I'm not going to give any kind of opinions on the quality of the sequel trilogy, because that doesn't matter. What matters is people cannot bring up or discuss the sequel trilogy without descending into a gibbering band of nonsense. And that's unacceptable. It is effectively a controversial topic, and controversial topics are banned. Q is from Star Trek. Star Trek The Next Generation primarily, although there's also Voyager to cover that as well. And he made one brief appearance in Deep Space Nine. And I hope he shows up in Picard Season 2, and I mean that sincerely, but that's neither here nor there. So... yes, Polemic Day is the one exception to that rule, Ect. So, Discord, he's bought out, and he's having fun with this, doing his thing. I would agree with that sort of comment, but I don't want to get too much into that. Quick aside, I do love how the beaver looks at the dam and pulls out one stick and it destroys the whole dam. But on the other hand, that means that dam was very badly made, doesn't it? I mean, you've done engineering design, right? I mean, I took classes on that back in school, and I don't know about you guys, but a bridge or a dam that has one point of failure. Anyways, I mean, I guess several things could be considered to be that. Yeah, it was a stone arch, exactly, because the cornerstone, right? There's the reason that statement exists, cornerstone. Yeah, Polsky loves his slapstick. He really does. But yeah, no, it is an amusing thing. I have to admit, that got a joke. And he just kind of looks around. Plunk. So, is Q omnipotent? No, because Q cannot do anything. He can do a lot, but he's not actually omnipotent. Omnipotent is a different level. Q is one of several beings of similar power. Q can be checked. Q can be limited. Q is limited. He is not omniscient, and he is not omnipotent. He uses those words, but he misuses them on purpose to try and make himself seem stronger and more higher tier than he actually is. He is very high tier, and I don't want to dismiss that, but he's not highest tier. There's a difference. Actual omnipotence, that's the kind of thing we generally don't see in fiction, because that is ridiculously high tier. And by ridiculously high tier, I mean perfectly high tier. Absolutely high tier. Which generally we don't see. Anyways. So, he's broken out of stone, and the first thing he does is stretch, and naturally his stretches involve... I mean, I'd probably do the same thing, right? It's like, oh, man, let's do that, and let's do that, and let's do that, and there we go. Enough with the Star Trek questions. No more Star Trek questions. Fling. All right, so... I also love how much fear and hesitation they have with regards to Discord. Remember, it's actually kind of hard to remember this in historical context, but this is the second Discord episode. He is going to become a very regular recurring character going forwards and have at least one appearance per season, but this is only the second time we've ever seen him, and the last time we saw him, he was one of the big villains. And the MLP series makes a big deal about its big villains and how that's kind of a shtick. We could probably sit down and list every single big villain we've got. Nightmare Moon, we've got Discord, we've got Tirek, we've got, God, what's her name? I can't think of her name. The Changeling Queen. We've got Sombra, and we've got the lady, I can't actually think of her name off the top of my head. And Chrysalis, thank you, Queen Chrysalis. And these are the only ones I know of. That's 6 major villains across the entire series. There's probably more that I don't know about. Because I'm discounting a certain pony we'll talk about later. But the fact of the matter remains, it's a big deal. All of a sudden, this major villain has come back, and they're like, hey, we're gonna deal with him. So, at least they put proper emphasis onto that. No, Diamond Tiara does not count. I think I would agree with that. Sierra Mike, absolutely. So, he's brought out, he stretches, they threaten him, he's like, okay, fine. We also learn a couple of things. I don't think I ever have either, Lord Harrimont, which is why I mentioned that. The first thing we learn is that he's aware, he's fully cognizant while in stone. That's interesting because the episode kind of glosses over that, but that's really horrifying. Especially to a being who is, by his very nature, discordant, chaotic. Someone who is, likes to go around and do and be, and we'll see how much weird he enjoys going forward. Hell, we see that in this episode of the rotating house, for God's sakes. He's fully aware when stoned. That's fun. The second thing we find out is, of course, that he can get away with doing magic that nobody notices. He does that with the beavers. This, more than anything else, helps to explain, I think, why I mentioned how he's not actually evil, and he's mostly just going along because it amuses him. As we pointed out earlier, it would have been extremely easy for him to just escape and be done with this. Instead, all he does is tail snaps the beavers in the background to go make some mischief. Just to amuse himself. Whoops. Now, the next thing that happens is actually a pretty cool thing. Because what they have to do is they have to... So, Fluttershy is going to be the one to reform him. Well, apparently, and I do have to put it this way because obviously I lack that context, one of the more common theories was that she was going to use the stare on him, which we've already had 2 episodes up until this point establishing the stare. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of counters to the continuity counter here. I'm just going to add those there. There we go. Or, nope, that's supposed to be a 5. My bad. Might push that up to a 6. We'll debate that. But the stare, you know. Now, what I like is they establish that the stare is not going to work right off the bat. That's good for 2 reasons. 1, it shouldn't work. Let's just be real. But 2, and more importantly, how do I phrase this? I think that would be dismissive of the point of the episode. You know? I'll get more into that later, I swear. But I do like the fact that they quickly establish, hey, here's the stare. Nope. Oh, God. Yeah, Sora in this world would be terrifying. Anyways, so then he's lounging in the thing, breaks the lamp, and they're like, oh, my gosh. And he actually rolls his eyes and then says incredibly, in an incredibly unconvincing way, oops, and then fixes it into the Discord lamp. Funny fact, we'll actually be seeing that Discord lamp in the future. But I love the fact that right at the beginning, it's very obvious that he really, really does not give a damn, and he's just pretending. That's important, because by the end of the episode, while he still doesn't care that much, he does care enough to actually react to things. That contrast is important to show that Discord does actually have an arc in this episode. It's too short, we've already talked about that, but at least the arc is there. So, the rest of the girls actually think befriending him is nonsense. Something about that is interesting. I'm not willing to say that's out of character, even though it's one of the main core points of the entire episode. Or, excuse me, series. Of the entire series. But yeah, there is a lot of confirmation bias here. They are very much unwilling to give him any slack whatsoever. And that's more complex than it sounds. I'll talk more about that later, too, I swear. But the fact that they so automatically are willing to be like, nope. So, you know what? Apparently in my notes now is when I'm supposed to talk about this. This is something that actually applies in real life. If I say the price of kindness, how many of you know what I'm talking about? It's actually not something I've brought up a lot, but I have brought it up in the MLP stuff. Yeah, no kidding, Sierra Mike. I think that's part of the reason I like this episode, weirdly enough, Sierra Mike. The price of kindness is power. If you are reaching out to help someone, that can cause problems, metaphorically. It means you are opening yourself up, you are making yourself vulnerable, they can hurt you, they can kill you, they can take advantage of you, they could use you to hurt others, they can hurt others via you. There's a car broken down on the side of the road. Do you stop to help them? They could have a gun or a knife. Or they could just be trying to get some money out of you. Or they could be seriously drunk or violent or insane or an escapee. The price of kindness is power, because power means you have the ability to accept the loss. If you're going to actually reach out and help someone, you need to do that with the full knowledge and understanding that it will probably not work. And you need to be capable of accepting the cost that's going to come, the consequence of that failure. Now, this is true in real life. But it's interesting to address in fiction because fiction has the concept of personal power. Now, you could argue that personal power exists in real life, too. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have magic in real life. We don't have mutant powers in real life. We don't have levels in real life. So the ability to accept and the consequence and price of reaching out with kindness is an extremely important thing to understand and to know when to do it and when not to. Sometimes you need to make that kind of a judgment call. Is this someone or is this situation a situation where I'm willing to accept that cost? Because you need to judge if there's even a shred of possibility that it's going to succeed. And you need to judge what's going to happen when it fails. This is why I made such a big point earlier about Discord being chaotic, not evil. If he was actually evil, this is all a mistake, and they should have never even tried. Because actual evil, really evil, is the kind of person who probably isn't capable of being reformed. See Tyrek as a person, as a wonderful example of someone who, let's be honest, is not going to get reformed unless they do something in the last seasons I don't know about. I don't think what Fluttershy did was naive at all. I do think she doesn't have, and I'm just going to be as blunt about this as I can, the level of experience as I do as the price of kindness. But I will say that I think she knowingly and willingly reached out that hand with full awareness that it would probably not be grasped in return. At the same time, this is the kind of thing you have to do to actually reach out to someone. Because you have to, I feel like I just said this, you have to actually reach out to them. You can't fake it. You can't force it. You can't put a gun to their head and say, be good or be my friend. You have to actually reach out to them and actually show them real kindness and real caring and concern. And they might respond to that, but they won't respond if you fake it, or worse, if you fake it and then they find out. And yeah, she does explicitly say later on that she's aware of what Discord's doing, but she is still continuing to accept that cost. The uncertainty and the worry and the fear. Because she continues to reach out. Now, this is actually funny. She says she won't use the element of harmony against him, which is kindness. Instead, she's just kind towards him the entire episode. Now, one of the reasons I think this works so well is, I mentioned earlier, Discord, yeah, no kidding, here, Mike. Discord, how do I phrase this? They do a really good job, and I think a lot of this is on John Delancey, but the animators do a good job too. Over the course of the episode, he does show signs of actual reformation. They're little tidbits. I thought about writing them all down, but there's like 30 of them. They're very small bits that show that he cares at least a little bit, or that he's partially affected by something, or, oh, sorry, let me fix that. Little acts of tiny, bare level politeness that wasn't there before, which shows that he is slowly kind of warming up to the idea of actually having someone who cares about him and that he cares about in return. Yeah, of course he would want to throw a dinner party and be entertaining. Of course he would. And I hate to point this out, but all he was doing was playing around and having fun with it until Rainbow Dash threw it in his face. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm giving him too much slack, because once he starts to have everything go crazy, he has a little giggle behind his hand, and he is legitimately amused by the antics. But he didn't start that. Rainbow Dash did, like 3 times if we want to get down to it. Yeah, they doubt him. They don't reach out a hand to him. And he reacts exactly like a person would react if someone tried to bat them down and say, screw you. How many of you have seen Space Above and Beyond? It's a TV show. It's an old TV show. It's like, got 2 seasons. It's a good damn show. I highly recommend it. So, well, that's why I don't want to give him too much slack, Savacom. Like I said. Has nobody actually seen this? That almost makes me sad. There's a character. I'm just going to jump in here. This is in the first episode. There's a character who I'm trying to find the name of the actor. Rodney Roland, I think. Pretty sure that's him. Yep, that's him. Rodney Roland. He plays Cooper. Now, Cooper's in vitro. That means he was a grown person. He was grown in a vat, okay? Again, none of this is spoilers. This is all established in the very first episode. The thing is, there's a lot of obvious bias against in vitros, and I don't want to go into the full depth of the whys and the wherefores. All I have to say is they're different from us, and you probably understand. Space Above and Beyond. Space Above and Beyond is the name of the show. It's a really good show. I really do recommend it. It's probably one of the best military shows I've ever seen in my life. Think kind of Honor Harrington-ish. Similar type of approach to science fiction. Anyways, the reason I bring this up is Cooper is a lout and a crook and a bully, and he gets into... sorry, not a bully. He's violent? He gets into fights, you know? I don't know what to call that. You know, he acts out. He acts out constantly. Do you know why? Because everyone treats him as though he's someone who's a crook and violent and a thug and someone who's going to act out. Without really meaning to, when he gets press-ganged into the military, because that's what happens, he gets forced into servitude. Yeah, it sucks here, Mike. It's still good stuff. I still recommend it, but... Anyways, he gets press-ganged into the military. And several people in the military treat him like he's a person. How do you think he reacts to that? There's actually a really great scene in the first episode where he gets knocked down. And guy reaches out a hand to him. He's like, you need help? He's like, I don't need help, you're human or whatever. He's like, oh, okay. You know, I just figured you might need help getting up. And Cooper looks up, like, befuddled, like, oh, you're treating me like a human being. Then he accepts the hand and gets up. And he's actually a pretty chill and pretty decent guy. But he's been treated like he's garbage his entire life. Now, yeah, Nick in Zootopia is actually probably a more commonly known example of this exact tram trope. Do you understand why I'm bringing this up with regards to Discord? This is part of the reason why this episode falls a little bit flat, is because the entire rest of the main five all treat Discord like he's a layabout, like he's a thug, like he's a like, so, all of them universally and throughout the entire episode treat him as if he's no good and he never will be, and he reacts to that, and that is extremely real. I've seen that in real life, too, consequently, especially back in school. Now, again, I don't want to sound like I'm giving him too much slack here. Let's remind ourselves that Discord is not reformed in this episode. That's important. He does not actually... He does not reform. He does not become a good person in this episode. That happens at the end of Season 4. But I do have to point out that it's not like anybody other than Fluttershy is even bothering to try. And that's part of what I like about this episode. It's actually more nuanced and subtle than it looks at first glance. Fluttershy is not being a naive idiot. Discord is not being a universally evil moron. Everyone on every side is trying their best to push in different directions, and quite frankly, several people involved are all wrong for their own reasons. What Fluttershy did was, let's be honest with ourselves, incredibly risky. We were talking about how Celestia, what she did was risky. What Fluttershy did was way riskier. What she did was a huge gamble. It happened to pay off. This is one of the reasons why I mentioned that I think Fluttershy was doing this because of her nature, not because of her experience. I would like to say that I'm at the point in my life where I am an exceptionally good judge of character, and I have a lot of experience to back that up. So I can generally tell when it's worth taking that risk, when the cost, the price of kindness is something worth accepting and not. A lot of that is built on the backs of making a lot of mistakes in that regards. This could have been very easily a mistake on Fluttershy's regard, because she was just doing this because. It is only with the advantage of hindsight analysis that we can see that Discord was showing signs of actually wanting to be reformed here, wanting to be a better person, enjoying interacting with others. There's a very minor point. Yeah, exactly. Experience comes from bad judgment. That's a great quote. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. Ain't that the damn truth? There's a very brief point. I actually brought this up way back in Discord's initial episode where he briefly seems upset, and I do mean briefly, at the idea that he does not have someone to share the fun with Twilight. But then he immediately discards that and says, "Ha ha, I've won!" I mentioned that back then because it comes up now. I think that was actually the beginning of showing that Discord is not evil, and that Discord wants to actually have friends. This is actually one of the strange parallels between Discord and Pinkie Pie, not just because they're both chaotic, but because they both enjoy sharing the fun. And we see this not only in this episode and future episodes extensively. Discord loves sharing the fun. He absolutely adores being part of the group. You remember the D&D episode? That's all I'm going to say. But you remember the D&D episode? That's a perfect example of how much Discord actively really wants to be part of the group, to have fun with the group, to share that fun with the group. And that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If you really like something, don't you want to share it? If you're really into a show, or a game, or a book, or a movie, or cars, or models, or sailing, history, don't you want to share that? I know not everyone does, but I know a lot of people do. It's human nature, to be completely blunt. And I know Discord's not human, but whatever. So, I've completely gone off the notes at this point. Still sapient, that's true, Ect. That's still true. There's this bit where, they're at the dinner table. That's where I was. They're at the dinner table. Dash is a dick, and I actually put in my notes, I'm not taking his side here because he is amusing himself, but you can see how the others aren't trying at all. And that's important. Then something interesting happens. Yeah, seriously, Pinkie, don't dive into the mashed potatoes like that. There's an important part here. Absolutely, Sierra Mike. I do think that, absolutely. I also think that's going to be relevant going forwards, too. But anyways. There's this bit where they're all, dang, he's horrible, he's horrible. And Fluttershy takes his side and says, I'm with him because that's what friends do. And there's this nice moment where Discord is just like, what? Now, there's been subtle signs throughout the episode that he's been getting better. But that's the first really obvious sign that he's starting to value. He's starting to understand the value of someone else. And that sharing concept and having someone else to... Yeah, he was completely unprepared for that. Of all the things he was doing, and of all the fun he was having, all the nonsense, that just completely hit him across the knees. And he was just... Huh. Yeah, he was being a Morgan. That's also a very good moment for Fluttershy, too. I agree, absolutely. Because Discord does value other people. He just hasn't really had a chance to realize that yet. Yeah, he's never had someone at his back. He has never had a friend at any level before. Which I'll talk about that in just a second. So in my notes, I say, is he reformed at this point? Of course not. Absolutely not. And then that's where I put my notes about the price of kindness. I've already talked about that, so I won't reiterate that. But this is where things get interesting. Fluttershy agrees not to use the elements against him. Now, this is wonderfully nuanced, in my opinion, because he's not reformed. We've already talked about that. He's not better. Well, excuse me, he's not good, but he is better. He takes that as carte blanche. I can do whatever I want. Like freezing all the lakes. I can do whatever I want, and you can't stop me. And hey, let's go ice skating, Fluttershy. You see, smoothly and naturally, the episode shows that he values her friendship. Just immediately. One of the first things he wants to do is he wants to go ice skating with his friend. He even makes the ice skates show up for her. That's a wonderful touch. Again, he's not reformed yet. I want to keep iterating that because he's obviously still being a dick. But he finally, as of that moment, he considers her someone he values, and he wants that. And yeah, she tosses her helmet to Spike, haha. So Fluttershy, says no. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go back in my thing. And he's like, ha, I've won! Come on, let's go have fun. And then she gets more and more pissed off about this until finally she says, not your friend. That's when he gets defensive. Credit to John Delancey. That's when he starts sounding defensive. For the first time, it's worth noting. Who cares if you're not my friend? What do you think I'm going to do? Do whatever you say just so I don't lose the one friend I've ever had. I love that line. Yeah, she doesn't say a word. He is the one who makes himself realize the reality of the situation. And he looks up and he sees the skates and he realizes, oh. This is why I kept bringing up that risk thing, because the harsh reality is they all took a gamble on this. There was really very little in-universe that they could take to say that he was actually redeemable, that he could actually be reformed, and that he could be a better person, as Weouts has been pointing out several times. It's not until he himself realizes how much Fluttershy matters to him, and that he realizes that he wants that to be a part of his life, he doesn't want to lose that he himself realizes that he can be better. And then the episode ends, basically. Just, hey, we're done. Yeah. Possibly Savacom, given how this setting works. But we do know that there's people who, by choice, don't fit within what I call the pattern. I talked extensively about that with regards to King Sombra, for example. Someone who actively wants to go against the ideas of being decent and kind and respectful. But yeah, anyways, sorry. Couple final thoughts here. Reformation can only come from within. Really. That's the only way that can happen. Otherwise, you're either just pretending or forcing or whatever, right? And Discord needed to be shown real friendship to understand why he might care about it. And I think that's really the core message of the film, or the episode, is that unless it's real, it's not really worth a damn. Oh, I skipped over that. I'm sorry. I was going to talk about the Reformation spells. That's up here in my notes. Of course, Twilight wants to go and get Reformation spells. What the hell? First of all, we know mind control exists in this setting. We've seen it. I mean, hell, Discord does it to the beavers in this very episode. So mind control exists. Yeah. Okay. Let's. All I'm going to say, and this is definitely getting headcanon-y. All I'm going to say is I think it's probably a good thing that the Reformation spells have basically been destroyed. Because, that's a good thing for those to be destroyed. That's the kind of thing that probably should not exist. Because if you think about future episodes and future interactions with people that they try to reach out to, it's probably good they never had the option to just go bzzz. And Starlight Glimmer will actually learn that that's not a good thing too, interestingly enough. Well, Cadence is a bit different. We talked about that a lot. What Cadence does makes a lot of sense in universe, especially as a cure. It's possible the Reformation spell works that way. Unfortunately, we'll never know, because they never actually say what it is. It's just a reform spell, and that's all we know about it. Oh yeah, final amusing point here. Discord in the last episode was incapable of manipulating Fluttershy, so he had to resort to straight mind control. So when he no longer is resorting to straight mind control, he can no longer manipulate her, and he loses to her. It's kind of funny. Believe it or not, that's basically all I got here. That's I do like this episode still. I'm not sure if this is top tier, but I think this is definitely high tier. I think I'm going to give this the red stamp because this is good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff here. So I'm going to chop off the local recording.